If I were to ask you who you thought was a very effective president, you might tell me Abe Lincoln, George Washington, Ronald Reagan, or Franklin Delano Roosevelt. However, I would like to tell you about another very effective president, James K. Polk. As a student of American history and an American myself, I feel like I'm very qualified to talk on this topic. From Polk's surprise election to his expansion of the United States into Mexico to his untimely death, he was a very interesting, if not looked over, president. I'm sure that most of you, if not all of you, have never even heard of James K. Polk, and neither had the Whig Party. Polk was a dark horse candidate coming out of Tennessee, an unknown. Frederick Voss says in his book, The Presidents, in 1991, that the Whigs were very happy that Polk was running on the Democratic ticket because they had never heard of him before. There was no chance that he could win against their candidate. Their candidate being Henry Clay, a big player in American politics for over 30 years. It wasn't his first time running for the presidential office, and it certainly wouldn't be his last, but he would never win. He was kind of the bridesmaid of the presidency, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. One of Henry Clay's campaign slogans was, "Who really is James K. Polk?" But soon the United States people found out about Polk and identified with many of his policies, specifically Manifest Destiny. That's the theory that it was the destiny of the American people to move ever westward, to Kansas, to New Mexico, to California, until our country spanned from sea to shining sea, from the Atlantic to the Pacific. Winning by a small margin, he soon went to work on his policy of getting these territories, Texas, California, and Oregon, by whatever means necessary. Turning his sights on Mexico, he quickly got us into a war in 1846. He knew that after the peace talks were breaking down, he would have no other option to get his goals than to go to war with them. Mark Crawford says in his 1999 book, The Encyclopedia of the Mexican-American War, that all Polk needed was a reason. After a small fight in a town on the Mexican and American border, a few American soldiers who were very drunk got into a fight with some very drunk Mexican soldiers, leading to a fight causing the death of a few American soldiers. Immediately, Polk went before Congress because he needed their approval to declare war. He said, "Mexico has passed the boundary of the U.S., invaded our territory, and American blood has been shed on American soil." He knew exactly what he wanted and knew how to keep control of his party. However, not everyone agreed with James K. Polk's idea of war. Michael Bleschloss said in his 2007 book, Presidential Courage, that Abe Lincoln was a staunch opposer of him and made it his personal goal to stop the Mexican-American War. However, back then he was still younger, it was his first term in Congress, and no one listened to him. He specifically told Polk that he wanted to see where the American blood was shed and on what American soil, because technically it was just a territory. However, no one listened to him, and Congress passed the war anyway because of Polk's vast power. Polk had a lack of experience in war and military matters, but was still able to keep control over the army. He didn't trust anyone else to do his work for him, so he kept control of everything, which led to a lot of stress in his life, and he was sick for most of his term. However, even though he didn't have much experience, he had very good strategies. He effectively shut down the Mexican border by putting his friends into general positions so that way they wouldn't betray him or do things that he didn't want them to do. After he had shut down the Mexican government and take the Mexico City, he was able to talk with them on his terms. In the negotiations, he sent a weaker person and unfortunately didn't get everything he wanted, but was able to still double the size of our country by getting everything from California, Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, and Texas. This, in effect, doubled the size of our country, which was very important because in Larry Schweikart's book, Patriot's Guide to American History, written in 2004, he says that the country went from 3 million people to 20 million people during his term because of the vast amount of immigrants who were coming in. The small territories that the United States had were overpopulated and we needed to move west. Now, I'm sure you're all thinking, if he was a president who actually did everything that he said, of course he must have run and gotten re-election. This brings us to the end of his first term and his death. He had passed all the legislation that he wanted and was able to complete all of his goals and decided not to run for re-election, Even after his own friends and party members begged him to, he decided that he did not want to. A lot of people say that the presidency ages you. If you look at Obama, you can see that his hair has turned much grayer than it was 3 years ago when he came into office. This is the same of James K. Polk. 4 months after leaving office, he went on a trip to Mexico, or not really Mexico, but to see the places that he had newly gotten. He got cholera and died. Unfortunately, he drank the water. Today, I've talked to you about James K. Polk, one of America's most interesting, if not overlooked presidents. Next time someone asks you who your favorite president was, or who was a very effective president, I challenge you not to say Abe Lincoln, George Washington, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, or Ronald Reagan. I say you should say Polk.